very quick. I did not expect that. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow, we have a
Right.
full house today. I'm so excited. And welcome everyone who's watching us across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I got to get them all on there. We are so glad that you're here and joining us for the Question Pro CX Trend Guide conversation. We have a full house of panelists today who have taken not only time from writing this document, letting us promote it, and now are even here to discuss it live with you. I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Question Pro. And if you would like to find any of us, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. And our esteemed guests are also probably on all of those platforms. And we will make sure to stick their links in the comment section. I'm based in Topeka, Kansas today, but usually out of Austin, Texas. And if you want to let us know where you're from listening, make sure you put that in the chat channel. We definitely have some support from the Question Pro team in our chat. So if you have any questions, do let us know and we can pull them up on the screen and give them to our panelists in live time. Now, as you can see, we've got a full house, even though some of their names are covered up. So I'm going to change that view. But if you would like to go around and introduce yourselves, this is who we've got. Dana, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Alvarenga. I am the Vice President of Customer Experience at Slap5. We are a customer marketing platform helping customer marketers drive revenue based off of their customer marketing, customer reference, and customer advocacy programs. That's me.
Awesome. Adrian?
Hey guys, I'm Adrian Brady-Chizana. I'm the founder of CX Chronicles. We are an agency that helps companies think about how they can really kind of blow their customer experience and customer success out of the water. I'm also the host of the CX Chronicles podcast. So every single week we have amazing customer-focused business leaders on the show talking about the 4 CX pillars: team, tools, process, and feedback. So super excited to be here with everyone today, guys.
Amazing. I'll leave our people for last. Mark, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Mark Michelson, Atlanta, Georgia. Lifelong marketing researcher doing all types of CX work. In addition, I've started up a series of events called CX Forums across the country in different markets. Hope to see you there.
Amazing. I know we definitely partner with you guys for CX Forums and love hanging out with y'all in IRL outside of this virtual world. Karl, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Crystal. Hello, everyone. Karl Charisse here from the wonderful, balmy Newburyport, Massachusetts. And I run a company called Horizon CX. I've done my time in corporate, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. But right now, as a business partner, actually, of Question Pro, I help those entering the field of customer experience get off on the right footing, and even those that have been in it for some time get better at it. And also, I am the host of the CXBS, or CX Behind the Scenes, which is a monthly program that is run by myself and Question Pro. Good, glad to be here.
Amazing. Valerie?
Hey, all. How are you? Valerie Peck. I've probably about 25 years of experience in what I would lovingly call research-driven making more money. And you probably all know me from a little tool we developed called Sweet CX. And we just came into the Question Pro fold in October of 2022. So I'm really thrilled to be among a group of people, many who I've known for a really long time, and part of this trend guide and part of the family. Thank you.
And last but not surely least, Ken Peterson.
Hi, Ken Peterson. I'm president of the CX practice here at Question Pro, based in Honolulu, Hawaii. But this week I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's cold. So I don't know what happened, but
Cold in Las Vegas. Wow.
Amazing. It looks like we have people joining us from Phoenix, Arizona, Montreal, Canada, Spain,
Ooh, buenos dias.
Hanoi, Vietnam, and Georgia. Wow, awesome. Thanks so much, everybody who's joining us across YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you have any comments and questions, make sure to put them in the comment box. We have a team offline that's monitoring those for all of us. Wow, I am so excited to have you guys here. I feel very not prepared. I'm sure y'all could have done this without me. But, we did in a recent poll, they were saying that, most people would say that most consumers say that better quality and service by 47% really make the difference in the customer experience. And that's kind of where we kicked off this trend guide. And if you haven't downloaded the trend guide, make sure you check it out. I actually had to print it because I wanted to make sure I was able to see all the wonderful little details and nuggets that we got in there. And we know that when we survey 300 people, it definitely gives us a segment, but maybe not all of it. And we're going to start off with trend number 1. Let me change screens here. And that is more automation, but a desire for human empathy. Do we think that's going to kick off this year? How do we feel about that? I mean, authenticity is definitely coming up in marketing with the rise of Be Real and bringing back the 90s, which I don't know how that's authentic, but it's coming. So who wants to kick us off? Adrian.
All right. So, I think number 1, so more automation, but desire for human empathy. So we already know that speed is super, super important in today's world, right? I think the one thing that COVID showed every one of us is that people want things now. They want things quickly. And I think that automation will help us with speed. But there's another big thing that I think most modern consumers are really, really paying attention to right now, and that's the quality piece that you just mentioned, Crystal. So, yes, automation is going to be here, but when you think about human empathy, or you think about personalization, or you think about that feeling of human touch, I think that's going to be imperative. So, for the first kickoff, there's no doubt about it. Automation is going to be a big part of all of our CX and CS games, but I think we're going to have to do it really, really well, and I think we're going to have to be really thoughtful around how you leverage the personal side of it so that it still feels like there is a human touch and there is empathy involved.
That's great. Anybody want to build on that? Oh, there.
Yeah,
they all do.
One thing to add on that too is with that more step-by-step automated process, allowing the customer to feel more in control and that they're not as dependent on the vendor of the product, but they still have that empathy and that human outreach if they need it. So that comes into play where they're able to be in control of the onboarding or implementation a little bit more with more automation there, but still have the human outreach with the experience that they have with that person that's assigned to them, if that's a customer success manager or someone from a support center, whatever it may be. So allowing them to be in control and feel more dependent, I think will play a part into that.
And I also think that going back to the survey you talked about here, where 47% looked at the quality of customer service. And I think there really needs to be a kind of a new coming together of customer experience and customer service, because I think for too long they've sat in separate silos. And if you talk to a customer experience person, they'll say, well, customer service is part of it, which I'm of that kind of belief. But if you talk to customer service, they look like they sometimes think they're the only ones responsible for the customer experience. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for those two to coalesce and actually, kind of come at it from an integrated whole.
Ooh, we've got a comment though. I think the customer needs to trust that the automation will work, and when it doesn't, that there is someone there that will resolve it for them ASAP.
Yes.
I know Jim is a friend of Question Pro. I know some of you all, I see a lot of nods. Is he going to be here as our commentary, offline commentator?
I guess the proof is in the pudding as to whether the automation will work. It needs to work.
Yeah, it has to work.
Yeah. It has to work. There's no choice. Yep.
Right. Ken, you had a comment, or did they already cover
even when
it?
the automation works perfectly, there are still some of us that can't figure it out. So you need to know when that interaction point has to happen. You have to have some way. If you go to a self-checkout, which most of us are familiar with, you hit that point where something's not working. You got that help button. but they should be able to anticipate it. And that's where the AI needs to kick in a little more, better gear. But there's other, I mean, I was just over the weekend at a conference of radio DJs. And the big topic is they're going to put them all on AI. Their jobs are threatened with, hey, we're just going to have AI voices. And then you don't get that localization. You don't get that, hey, here's something the community that's the listening area is going to be relating to. So, I mean, that was the big topic. So being able to understand, not just that they need help, but that there's more to an interaction than just that transaction.
Yeah, and as the risk goes up, so it's your financials, you're buying something really big like a car, the more you perceive that there is a danger in making an error or a mistake, or you really need help, like you're on the runway and you just found out your next flight was canceled, those types of things tend to lend themselves to needing to talk to someone who at least acknowledges you as compared to something that is still more robotic. So I find that happens a lot as well. So, for all those what we lovingly call low calorie calls, I need my bank account amount, or did this particular thing happen? All of the automation is something that people are used to and welcome. But I always joke around with automation is and this is even the precursor to true automation, is people get on Open Table and want to make a reservation and it says, we're full. And I always ask them, did you push the little green button on this? The one that says call? And they say, no, it's full.
Absolutely
say,
not.
Try pushing the little green button here and talking to the human. And they say, oh, no, we won't do that. And then you push the button and you get a reservation. And they're like, how did you do that?
Absolutely not. I would rather go hungry than have to call someone on the phone.
Oh, no, don't say that.
It is so funny. It is just so typical, and it is generational as well, But I'm seeing, interestingly enough, generationally, that companies who are live in the Gen Z and Gen pre world are moving back to more human support. Like Wayfair talks about how they have humans help you design things now. So the pendulum, interestingly enough, keeps shifting up and back and up and back. And I guess it's our job to catch it as it's going in one direction or the other.
You make up a great point, Val, about the generations and their expectations. I always had a computer in my house, but that's not the case for all millennials, but for my nephew who's 17, he is almost like he's like, he calls people all the time.
Yeah, it's true. There's like a whiplash for that. And, Karl and I were talking yesterday, was it, or the day before, about the fact that, in trend land, everybody's talking about human-centered design out of one side of their mouth, and on the other side, they're talking about ChatGPT, and literally they're almost the antithesis of each other, right? One is really soft and fuzzy, and the other one's push here, dummy.
Valerie.
What did you say, Karl?
It only knows what's out there in the world,
That is exactly.
Repeat back what it's already known, so far at least.
So far. So that takes us to our next great point. Then, if we are moving away.
I think Mark has something important to say.
I did have a comment I'd like to contribute. There is no one size fits all. And I think some companies approach it as, check box, I've got a chat box. Yeah. The second thing is having some sort of, brand personality within the automation if you're going to do that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you're actually speaking to your proper audience, whether it's right text size, right language, whether it's fun, cool, whatever. But there is no one size fits all. And that's my point. Thanks.
You don't have to say thank you, Mark. Thank you for commenting. But that does take us, if we're moving away to more of a I would say authentic, empathy driven, people driven. We're whiplashing back, even though it should be, everything's good in moderation. But since when does human behavior like moderation? How do we then prove ROI in a CX experience when so much of it is going to be people based? Mark, would you like to kick us off?
We get questions around what is ROI in CX. And of course, most departments in businesses have to prove some sort of value to the company to continue to get a budget. And it's a big challenge. I mean, I've seen a lot of different models for having an ROI around CX. I don't know that many people in a C-suite really get it yet, because it's soft. There's a lot of it's an emotion business. When we're dealing with customer experiences, it is about the emotion you have versus, and you can quantify that, obviously, but it is an emotional thing. It's an emotional connection to the brand, to the overall product, how you enjoyed that, how you got it delivered, and were there any problems. And I don't know that that formula is well known in the C-suite.
Interesting. I always say that people don't do CX for their health. So when we do work, we always try to tie it to acquisition, retention, and growth because those numbers are there. And if we can help people with that, then we become value, right? And, I remember back in the day, my very first job, I helped my own company do better CX, and we added something like $360 million in a quarter to the bottom line. And my board member who I worked for said, that's great, that's a rounding error. So it is relative, right? So tying yourself to something that's already there is so much easier, and emotion is so hard, Mark. The metrics around emotion and the correlation to repurchase are very low. So how do you take those net promoter scores and CSAT scores that have no correlation to repurchase and prove yourself with them, right? You have to tie your star to something else.
And in each channel, each industry, for instance, grocery store asks me every week, how likely am I to recommend them, right? I'm not, ever. It's never going to be a
grocery store
conversation. Maybe a dentist or something, but
guys, one thing to add on to what Mark and Val are talking about, and Lilith just comment on this, Crystal, but like the other piece too is part of why the executive rooms across the world struggle with this is it is extremely complex to take a look at a customer journey from the very start to the very end, and then building off of what everyone's talking about to find where you can affix or attach to things that are already there, whether it's your sales and your revenue counts, your marketing counts, your operative counts, your tech counts, and then to start to really get people across the business to understand, wait a minute, CX and CS, if it's done extremely well, it's a team sport. So every one of you has a bit of authorship in this and you have ownership in it, right? So stop saying it's just the CX or the CS leader. It's not, it's everyone. But then the other thing too, though, is like anything in life, guys, storytelling, the better you can tell a story, the simpler it is for people to understand where you want them following along, right? So whether it's building the morning or the afternoon or the evening news, and then whether it's making sure you got the right people telling that story, right? You have the weatherman telling the weather, you got the sportswoman telling the sports, you've got the local telling the local. Like thinking about that inside of your business is going to be one of the easiest ways that very quickly you start to grab that executive attention that is going to be completely required to get anything across the line in any business in the world.
like that.
And with looking at it in, like you're mentioning, Adrian, totally agree with the B2B space too, of taking the umbrella of customer experience and just looking at the advocacy aspect of it. Right. So those acts of advocacy that your customers are doing, if they're doing referrals or doing reference calls or speaking on events like this, and tying those back to influence revenue, showing what opportunities expanded, what opportunities had advocates in them that did acts of advocacy, what opportunities closed, which ones renewed, and measuring that way, I see as a huge trend. And that's where we're kind of guiding a lot of the customers that we work with on my end of those acts of advocacy are their golden ticket to influencing revenue.
Yep.
Yeah, we call that strategic value when you do a lifetime value analysis, which Crystal is going to be hosting our class on that shortly. There's actual value, which is those numbers you're talking about, and then there's strategic. How many times when someone calls an influencer do they recommend you rather than someone else?
Totally. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
But you
And
see,
that's, I mean, frankly,
a lot of that's rear view metrics. It doesn't really do much to help improve except to correct something that's wrong. You know, it's just it's proving, yeah, we did that. Okay, great. Well, I tied it to that. Now, there's a lot of other people taking claim for more sales as well.
you don't have to tell marketing about that.
You know, I think another aspect of this is that there's CX is a long-term proposition. At least I've always thought of it. It's a long-term proposition. So you have to have patience for this. And that's where I think a lot of senior leaders don't have that patience. You know, we talk about quick wins, and we're always looking for quick wins and stuff like that. But it's also, I mean, what makes ROI so much harder is that there is this length of time. You know, it's not going to be, I did this today, pushed this lever, and all of a sudden I got this result over here at the end.
Right.
There's a time element to this. And I think, I don't know, that's probably more of a question than a comment is how do you help that? How do you help that understanding that takes time?
When you ask,
Are you seeing other cultures that have more patience? So like China, Japan, that have a 20-year plan, able to incorporate this better, because you've got a bigger picture than me, better than, the US 90-day stock market driven folks? Or the warmer cultures, I call them, in LATAM, are they more able to do that?
Anyone would like to?
well, if it's run by accountants, it's always improved the minute. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the U.S. mantra. I mean, what have you done for me now? Right. So when you think about ROI, it really starts as a business case for asking for budget at the beginning. Every year you go through budgeting and you say, hey, I want to do this thing on this platform. It's going to measure every interaction. Well, how much is that? And what's the ROI? That's the basics you got to focus on. Is from the beginning when you're asking about budget, have your business case in hand.
What Mark says right there, it's really interesting, guys, because again, like he's right. Start with just your basic team assessment and your tech stack assessment now, and then show us what your actual ROI looks like on some of the existing resources that you have before we start unpacking all these other hypothetical or projected ROI sets around what CX and CS can do for you. Because a lot of times the bottom line is, like, when you just start with your current team and your current tools, you will literally see what's either returning or not returning an ROI. And then you can start to build from there, right? And then you can start to figure out where there's prime opportunities to go after.
Thank you so much for kind of wrapping that up, Adrian. That was a great commentary on our ROI and your proving ROI in CX. And for everyone joining us, I just want to reintroduce our panel of guests. I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Question Pro. And we are joined by the authors of the Question Pro CX Trend Guide 2023. And they are really giving us some great nuggets. I already wrote some things down. I was like, oh, I'm going to use that for socials later. And we are just so grateful that they are taking time out of their day to join us. We're all across the world, from Las Vegas to several of them are in the great cold north that I do not want to be in. And so let us
You are in the great cold north.
I would not survive. Let us know where you're from in the comments. And if you have any questions for our guests, please let us know and we'll flash them up on the screen. They don't even have to be questions. They could also be disagreements or commentary. But we are going to move to our next question. We've covered, ROI with CX and the trend of empathy in our new kind of automation programming. And now I know this is a hot topic. Karl said he already has some notes, so I'll kick off with him.
Did I say that? Well, I'll tell you what.
Our new specialized service in AI. This is going to be a trend in 2023. Karl, you want to kick us off with some comments?
Well, I'll tell you what. I am enamored with ChatGPT, so I can be counted as one of those. And I don't believe in it that it is the new panacea coming here. I can tell you that right now. But one of the things we talked about in this guide here was what the effect that the customer recession would have, or the coming recession, on customer experience. So I thought, well, I've got some ideas about that, but let me just see what ChatGPT had to say about this. So I'll make it short here, and I'll only tell you what the 4 things it came up with, and then maybe you can kind of respond to this thing. Reduced customer spending. Surprise, surprise. Increased price sensitivity. Change in customer priorities. Well, customers are always changing their priorities, and that's what makes this business so challenging. And then reduced resources in a recession. And again, it had a whole bunch to say about that. But again, it's probably not what we would not have said if we were asked that question ourselves. Right?
Yeah, I could have answered that without ever having read a survey response or anything else too.
Ken, you've been quiet. What are your thoughts then on specialized services and AI, artificial intelligence, for those who may not know what I mean?
Well, I think I think it's going to be a lot more of that automation challenge that we talked about earlier. I mean, are people going to grab onto it, or are people going to say, "Hey, this is going to be good enough"? And I remember when blockchain was introduced. Crystal, you're pretty familiar with that space. I remember every CX company, every CX technology company saying, "Oh, we're going to integrate blockchain into our offering." And I'm like, do you even understand what blockchain is? It's more for accounting than it is for survey tracking or CX, or And so I think we'll see a lot of these same things. There'll be with the OpenAI release of ChatGPT back in November 30th. I mean, it's only been a couple of months if you think about it. And Question Pro has already developed 2 tools to help our customers. And so it's like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of that happening. And then you're going to see a lot of them start to filter out. You're going to see some that, hey, this is meaningful. This is going to last long term. So I think we'll see a lot of these specialized services. I think we'll see a lot more video interaction, sort of really getting into the intense reading of emotion from a video that's left, whether it's a YouTube video or all of us chatting here, or a FaceTime interaction with a company that we do business with. But we're going to start seeing a lot of that pop up. And then, what filters out, I can't predict. If I could predict that, I would have invested in Apple back in 1984. So.
Dana, thoughts on specialized AI?
I mean, I honestly really agree with everything that Ken was just mentioning. I mean, I think that it's interesting to see a lot of platforms, a lot that I'm seeing in the customer success area, even which is underneath this customer experience umbrella, that are integrating and bringing in Chat GPT. I always say it wrong, GPT, right? And how that's going to affect, based on what Karl mentioned, with the decrease in teams. Like, so what aspect is that helping? Is it helping the end user customers? Is it helping internally? I mean, I see the positives and the benefits. I think it's great for some sales folks that maybe aren't great writers, getting some automated emails created. I mean, it's always a dog on salespeople. I'm sorry, but I mean, I see that as great templates, use case type of things. But besides that, I mean, bringing back to our first thing, the human touch, even more now than ever. I think that automation is going to be great and AI is going to be great, but people still are going to need that human touch and that empathy from that contact, however it is, B2B or B2C space, that they have someone there that's not AI.
Yeah.
So,
I fear mediocrity. It all comes from the same sources, so it depends on the sources that are feeding it, right? And so if 15 people ask the same question and they get the same answer and they execute on that flawlessly, now we've gotten a really humdrum experience of 15 people.
And you're right, Valerie, because if you ask ChatGPT the same question I asked, you're probably going to get the same answer.
Yep.
That's a good point. I just did a survey for a client, and all of this work that I did into it, including IDIs and a good robust survey, very obscure product. It has to do with pergola tops, right? Who's how much do you know about pergola tops, right? Especially clear ones.
Probably you now know a lot.
Well, yeah, I learned a lot by talking to people and doing all this research and everything. And at the end of it, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what my recommendations? I put them out there before Chat GPT, and I just for the heck of it ran the same thing on Chat GPT, and it gave me the exact same results as what I learned, which was scary to me because I'm not using it as a service tool. I'm using it as an analytic tool to see, does it really resonate the same thing? And it does. It's a big echo chamber. But I wonder if I had a different product and I put it in there, would I have the same recommendations? I don't know. This is really specific stuff around, pergola building for outdoor builders, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if it does the same advice for tires.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the fun of playing around with it it's a discovery process here. I mean, that's what I am enjoying out of it. As I had it write a song about Net Promoter Score, and it
that was brilliant.
And I could actually lay claim to be the author of that too. ChatGPT going to argue with me that they own the royalty rights for this, so they have the copyright.
But to Karl's point and all your guys' point, Karl, you said beforehand, it only has access to information that's already out there.
Right. So
and if your customers are keeping their information in their brains and not on the internet, then you will have a finite batch of information.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not synthesizing any new knowledge. It's just kind of repeating back what it knows. And so,
but it does what it's
your favorite knowledge repeater, huh?
Marketing and
it's wonderful. It does scrape social data. And that's always been a challenge. When I created the Social Media Research Association, there were finite tools that you could use in order to tap into. Some were fire hose quality. Some were more like a trickle, okay? I'm talking access into Facebook or Google or whatever. And being able to harvest that information and make sense of it quickly, ChatGPT is accessing those social comments.
right. Some of us like to keep our things off of socials.
There's plenty, in the world of sampling, you got to go with what you can take, right? So.
But also as we've started kind of putting up, I would say, barriers around socials, things like Snapchat and Be Real can't be scraped. And so some of that information, like people who put out on Twitter a certain vibe, and the people who use Snapchat and Instagram that can't be scraped necessarily, definitely. I'm
talking product reviews. I'm talking on Amazon, on Google.
Yeah. Well, I worry about the dark side of all of that. I mean, if there are troll farms everywhere, and I know it sounds paranoid, but again, it spits out what you put in. And over time, if you get a big enough set, then it will all democratize, or whatever the word might be. But in the short term, you could really do, again, in not necessarily affecting CX, but it could definitely have kind of an odd rebound of spitting out information that you might not necessarily totally believe, because we're now in the world of disinformation.
That is true.
And there
is AI in all aspects could be its own webinar.
Yeah.
Hal, you're too young. Both Dana and Crystal are too young for Hal, but you start thinking about that.
Wait. Jerry Sufert.
Hal, 2000, what is it? Space Odyssey. Yeah, taking over the world.
What Jerry just said there, it's funny what Jerry just said in the comments there about it being predictive of business leaders buying into that. I think it's funny when I think about some of the ways that customer-focused business leaders are going to think about AI, especially for this year and moving forward. But it's more on, Dana said, keep your customer, or keep your people to focus on the customer work. When I think about how to really truly lever AI on the CX and the CS side, I'm thinking about it more as a way of thinking about how you can leverage it to aggregate all of your tools and your systems or your data sources. And then I'm looking at Val and thinking about what Val's talking about, where what you put into it's what's going to come out. If you know your signals and you know your metrics and you know your key performance indicators, that is a really fantastic way of starting to lever the power of AI, because theoretically then you can keep your people for customers, keep your people for product conversations, keep your people for the fun stuff. Let AI do some of the stuff that every one of us on this call knows. It takes time, energy, know-how to crunch and to roll and to make sense of this data. Let's leverage AI for that. And I think that that's going to be a big thing that a lot of tomorrow's companies are really going to kind of hone in on and focus on.
Yep. Back in the 90s, there was a great book called Best Face Forward. And it did exactly that. It put out there something that we all take for granted now, is that if you can give people control and self-service of things like looking up where their mail is or routing where their Uber car is coming and all of those different things, that the technology can take over all the low calorie stuff so that when you really do need a human for something, they can dedicate themselves to you. And that was mind-blowing back in the day. And now if we look at almost every company, we are co-working with that company to do jobs they used to do.
I wonder if the mindset of a company that's thinking about installing this is to help customers or to save money.
Probably the latter.
Yep.
Mark, you're taking us to our next point.
Good for you.
Woo! Do more with what you have. Is it to have people help customers, or is it to do more with what you have and save money? Mark, you want to kick us off?
It depends on who's running the company, right? If you're letting the accountants take over, you're going to just focus on saving money until you don't have a company.
Oh, yep. You don't like accountants. You don't like salespeople.
Just hoard what you got. Screw the customers. We got all this.
Yeah, I totally agree. It depends. If you're looking at do more with what you have, and you think your people are innovative and creative and empowered and trustworthy, you're going to get a fully different response with that than the let's see how much money we can save.
Yep. And then business life cycle, guys. So if you are a scrappy company that's trying to figure out how to put together its first 5 million in annual versus a super mature established company that's already rocking hundreds of millions a year, those are two totally different camps, right? So being wide open and being innovative and collaborative and creative, probably need to do that to get from $0 to 5 million. Once you start rocking hundreds of millions of dollars a year, you're thinking about cost protection, cost savings, risk mitigation. You're thinking about a totally different playbook around how you're building and leading your company.
Right.
When I'm looking at and seeing that phrase, do more with what you have, I'm looking at it more in the lens of do more with what you have of your customer feedback and reusing that. So reuse the content, repurpose it, make an ask once from a customer for feedback, interview, and use it 5 different ways. Put it on social, put it into a blog, do an interview, record a podcast, all of it. There's the old mindset of you need to make one ask for one permission for one thing. No, make one ask and use it multiple ways. Reuse it.
Oh, yeah.
Reuse it.
Totally,
so do more with what you have. That feedback is valuable. Use all of it,
and
not just that one quote.
Dana. And what you said, Dana, because we've heard the phrase being data rich and insights poor. I mean, there you go. You've done all this asking, you've got all this data, and maybe you're only using a portion of it. Maybe you're not using any of it, which is a shame.
Yeah.
The lines in research and marketing were always pretty clear. You never did research to sell something, okay, in the past. There was clear demarcation. Associations outlawed it. I mean, basically, it's called sugging, selling under the guise of research, right? So now those lines are blurred. Screw that playbook. I got someone here that said they are whatever. I'm on them. Really quick. And some of that fast reaction to just getting money off the customer turns people off. If you're trying to squeeze that lemon a little hard, let me upgrade you to this. Just the funnel mentality is just drives me nuts as a customer. Because I see the funnel. I got it. I
see the funnel and I don't want to be a part of it.
No, I just want ketchup, man. I don't need all the sugar.
Well, and the same thing, do more with what you have. If you really do understand what you've got and how the customer looks at it from the outside in, there's a lot of things that you don't have to necessarily do that you do in a company that are not positively impacting or just are neutral. So you can essentially shave around the edges there and save some time, some money, and it doesn't impact anybody. So a lot of people forget that because they kind of the bottom of the iceberg never gets trimmed. It's always those poor salespeople.
Ken, you gave us a really nice quote in the guide about, the companies and the customers kind of struggling against one another. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Well, it's always that same battle that we have everywhere. I mean, if you get into any sort of relationship, it's like, what am I getting out of it? What are they getting out of it? And I think the dynamics between a relationship with a company is much more complex because, it's not just a customer and a company and, however you want to define the company, but there's these employees that are factored into it. Ooh. And all three of them are battling for their own personal gain. I mean, let's face it, you don't have loyalty to a grocery store because, oh, well, their logo is awesome. You don't have loyalty to a grocery store because, those executives, I think they're making some good money off me. No, your loyalty is because you feel you're getting something out of that relationship. And, same thing goes with the employees and goes with, the leadership of that organization, the people that invest in that company to bring that service to you. Everyone feels like they need to be able to get something out of it. And, all too often we try to look, I mean, it's funny because we were talking about, hey, let's look at what, AI can do for us. Let's look at this. Why don't you look at what you have and say, what can these people do for us? I mean, you still have in a store, you still have employees. Can't we train them better to interact better with humans, especially as we push people, for the self-checkout? You need to have specialized people that can say, I can help you with that problem. And I know that you're going to have that problem. And so the leadership in these organizations needs to be able to recognize that you have to balance those two factors against, hey, can we cut some costs and make some money?
I'm loyal to my grocery store. Every time the guy who marks down chicken sees me coming, he starts marking down chicken and chicken livers and all sorts of stuff because I make my own dog's dog food and he sees me coming. They think, now, of course, they look at the data and they think I'm a Sapporo drinking, liver eating person who they don't have any idea how to look at us, our household, from a holistic view. But boy, they know me and they know when I come on a certain day what I'm going to buy, and they help me. So I show up there first. I get everything else elsewhere where they don't have that.
There's huge differences in culture on that. The idea of employees, and Jerry's got a comment again about, quiet quitting is a thing. So, how do you get some quiet quitting's going on? And it really, the hiring thing is so important. Fast food experience, it's probably the worst place to work, right? Chick-fil-A experience versus, I don't know, Burger King. Think about it. Same processes, but hired differently, trained differently, different values, focused on helping the customer have a good experience versus let's just sell this stuff.
Knowing what the brand promise is, people who are down in the front-facing organizations sometimes have no idea about what the company is attempting to do or stand for, and how are they be able to articulate that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Valerie, when you were talking earlier about, supermarkets, it triggered a little story here. And I don't know where I read it, but recently I read about a market where people wanted to have a more personalized experience. So they had, they didn't want the self-checkout. They wanted somebody to talk to them. They wanted to have a conversation during checkout, if you can believe that. And people were lining up in that lane in order to go through that checkout so they could have this nice conversation with the clerk at the end of that.
My daughter works as a cashier.
Peak moment. Yep.
At one of these grocery
Crystal, I see you cringing at that.
So
Talking to people, really?
She's 17, and she's got all these people trying to talk to her about whatever. She has no idea what they're talking about half the time.
But that's doing more with what you have, though, isn't
Totally.
it?
it is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
As someone who worked at Starbucks as a barista for 8 years and I knew my customers by name. I saw them get divorced. I saw them get married. Saw them have affairs. I saw all the things.
Yep.
Ooh, that would be a money-making proposition.
As someone who was on the giving side of that, Totally. I'm friends with some of those people still on Facebook, or, they're really a part of their lives. But now, sometimes I just want to live my life independently of making friends with a cashier and talking on the phone.
And one thought about that, though, is that's why companies have to get doing more with what you have. Get extremely good at doing your segmentation, because if you do know the different cuts or the different buckets of customers you have, Crystal wants to live her life. Valerie might want to chat for 20 minutes. Mark might have his own thing, or he might be a hybrid version of that. So this is why you got to understand the people that you already got. Same thing on the team side, guys, by the way. Employee experience, employee engagement, employee retention, quiet quitting. Know your employees. Understand who's in the A class where they're killing it and they're ready to rock and roll for the next 10 years. Who's in the B class where they kind of like you, but they kind of hate you. And then who's in that last step? Who are the flight people? Who are people that are already on they're already on the fifth interview. They're just they're ready to walk across the street. So segmentation is another thing that you can easily do internally and externally with your customers and your staff.
For sure.
Absolutely. Personas are huge.
Oh yeah.
Especially again, as the risk goes up with higher value products and services, right? Everyone kind of always devolves down to, Taco Bell in the grocery store. But, if I'm buying a $70,000 Lexus or a $120,000 Tesla, my needs may change. They may change one way or the other, but they'll definitely be different.
Yep.
And that kind of takes us to the speed to market and response, knowing those segmentations, knowing how fast we're going, and making adjustments to them. This is our fifth and final trend, everybody. And if you've been here for the whole time, thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us now, we have been walking through the CX Trend Guide of 2023 with our esteemed colleagues and guests. You're esteemed now, I said so. And we are so grateful that you're joining us across LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We are all over the globe, and we hope you are too. Let us know in the comments where you're from, or let us know if you have some commentary, and we will definitely, we've been, interspersing it into our conversation. And this is our last and final trend, speed to mark and response. How do we segment those people? How do we get back to them faster? And can you get back to people fast? I guess going back to our first trend with empathy. Who'd like to kick us off?
There's two areas of this. Speed to market means, to me, new stuff. Okay. That means I've got to innovate, and whatever that innovation is, I want to get it out there quick. That's what that means to me. Now, response means I've got a problem I need to resolve of some kind, whatever that is. It could be an internal thing. It could be a customer thing. But when you talk about speed, either one of those things, we're in that era now where we can get these things very rapidly done to market. For instance, all the different monitors out there for customer experience, if they're actually acted on a real-time basis. I remember, mystery shopping in the past, we used to get the report to the client maybe a month later. Right? It came by fax and all this stuff. You had to do that entry. Now it's boom, let's act on it. That person, put the light bulb in, whatever it is. Now, if you're talking about innovation, that takes a whole different mindset to say we need something new, whatever that is. There's a problem of some kind. How do we solve that? And the idea of agile and iterative work and through that faster with Scrum and all this kind of stuff, it's a lot improved, and it's just accelerating in my view. Clients want
we do all our journey mapping agile now because of that, right? Act, react, because or even predict and act, because it becomes far more useful than having wall art where people do other things, right? So it and the survey more actionable, faster. So you integrate that all, and people tend not to do strategy in real time, but they definitely can act upon things that are problem in needing closed loop capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So some of the things you guys said in the guide was staying informed about customer needs and preferences, being proactive, fostering a culture of innovation, embracing change, and the last one, using agile methodologies.
Wow, look at that.
I know. It's like you guys wrote this or something.
One thing to add too would be around, and this is my opinion from the B2B space, is being more customer led. So having I mean, it's that feedback and the speed and a lot what you mentioned, Mark, of getting those insights from your customers, making them design partners, bringing them into the communication, one for speed for product, but then also driving that customer-led mentality to help grow what that new thing to market is, or just what your product is in general. So just building that community aspect and that customer-led vision, definitely I see going to be even more of a trend. Again, leaning back on, I mean, they all tie together, leaning back on that first one, empathy of your customers, let them be the driving force of the growth of your product, and bring them in.
They're not really good with a blank piece of paper.
Right.
It requires a little more observation and intuition to see where those roadblocks are, or what they're trying to do and what they have to go through to get there. They can't articulate that often. That's why we use a lot of projectives.
Awesome. And so we are at 9 minutes left. As Dana said, they all do tie together. If you haven't downloaded our CX Trend Guide, it is still available. And Paulina, who is the marketing lead for CX at Question Pro, she'll be dropping it in the chat channel if you haven't downloaded it yet. And so we're going to conclude this with a little bit of as rapid fire as y'all can be. This has been a great conversation, but give me, starting with Adrian, give me your vision for CX in 2023 and beyond.
I just think that now more than ever, the customer is in a place where they want to do business with brands that understand the speed piece, the personalization piece. And I'm going to throw a curveball out there. I think a lot of younger folks and a lot of our younger population, they want to do business with brands that actually care about their people, their employees, and their staff. So those would be three things that I'd have everybody kind of looking out for not just this year, but for the future.
Awesome. Ken?
Well, I've always heard the adage, there's faster, better, cheaper, and you can only have two of those three. Well, I think the world today has evolved quite a bit where they want those three. And in addition to that, as Adrian has said, they also want a place where their values align, the empathy they show to their employees align. So, it's no longer the faster, better, cheaper. It's faster, better, cheaper, alignment, empathy. You keep adding to it. And
it's loading up.
I think that's where it's evolving to.
Amazing. Mark?
It's the mindset, help people buy versus sell stuff. And I think it's also, do we rely on the rear view metrics always, or do we come up with ways to look forward?
I love that. Karl?
Kind of taking from what you said, Mark, that rear view, I'm looking at front view. And so it's really simple. I mean, talk about doing more with what you have. Simple things that in a front line, smile, be personal, be interactive, be caring, be trustworthy, be informative, helpful, show empathy, be memorable, be emotionally resonant, be genuine. Success, effort, and emotion, that kind of metric that we kind of love, that kind of says it all right there, I think. It's reduced down to simple things one can do without getting too strategic and too fancy. If you do those things, that can't help but help you win.
Sounds like a lot of customer experience or CXing is just like being nice to people.
Well, there you go.
Dana, 2023, 2024 future trends.
So I would say the trend's going to be a lot around building stronger communities and customer-led peer-to-peer engagement and peer-to-peer environments, which will foster those relationships, help get those, what we mentioned, products faster to market, the right products, the right features, the right enhancements, while also building a little bit of FOMO, the fear of missing out for those customers that are with your brands and that are with you. The people on the outskirts, they want to be included in it. So get that FOMO up.
FOMO is the millennial love language.
100%.
IRL.
Valerie, trends for 2023 to
Yeah, well, whether it's B2B or B2C, because I love you, Dana. I love B2B. Really, CX is not something that is tacked on or hung off of the rest of the business. CX is the business. And if you're smart, it is the strategy that builds your business rather than being something that a lot of people think is oh, we do CX here over on the side. It's smart business. Understanding what I laughingly say to your point, Karl. You ask and Crystal being nice to people. If you figure out how you're abusing your customers and you stop, they buy more, right? So that really is. We have companies who actually decide what buildings they're going to build based on CX, as compared to saying how much do you love me and we're going to tweak something around the edges. So CX should be the center of what's going on as compared to the peripheral.
Amazing. And I'm going to say it one last time. If you haven't downloaded the trend guide where all these guys put in their really good nuggets. I thought about reading some of them, but they're kind of long, so you got to read them. And so make sure you download our trend guide. We are so grateful to Adrian, Ken, Mark, Karl, Dana, and Val for joining us on this CX trend guide discussion. And if you want to learn more, go to questionpro.com/CX. And one of Val or Ken or Mark with a C, who is not here, will reach out to you and teach you more about how Question Pro can really be that whole solution for your CX program, your research program, or your employee experience program. Thank you all for joining us, and I really appreciate you being here. Bye, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.